Good morning. Yesterday I mentioned something about working with multiple blocks. So I thought today I would do that and show you the process of matching up blocks so that when you turn them they are coordinated and look cool. My phone just rang. Okay, so my phone rang. It was my doctor reminding me I have an appointment on Monday, which brings me to why I'm deciding to do a multiple block series today, in part because I have an appointment on Monday morning and I wouldn't be able to make my block on Sunday. My cat. Do you ever have one of those days where you just feel like it doesn't start out in your favor and you wonder where it's going to go from there? Hope it only goes better. Anyway, that's Finn. So, I'm going to make a multiple block set today and show you how the different sides should be designed to coordinate. And I decided to use a picture that I've made for selling for prints and note cards. I mentioned that I do stationery, and it's on Etsy.com. My shop is What's My Future, all one word, no apostrophe. I have a thing for vintage. I have a thing for vintage turquoise. I have a thing for ball jars, mason jars, glassware, things like that. I like the nostalgia of it. So anyway, I made this ball jar print, and I use it for some really cute stationery. I mean, if I do say so myself, it's pretty cute. What I'm going to do today is cut this piece. Cats. I'm going to cut this piece into squares like so. I already have my other one cut, and then I'm going to wrap them around a block. I'm going to have 3 blocks, so the top will be like this, and then when you turn it around, this jar will be pasted on the back. So when you turn it around, it looks like 2 jars, or it conveys the feeling of 1. And then I will have 2 more blocks. The bottom one will obviously have the bottom. The second one will have the middle. And then when you stack the top on, it'll look like a jar. The first thing I'm going to do after I cut this one jar into 2" by 2" squares is I'm going to X-Acto knife around the jar and cut all this excess white off. And then I'm going to whitewash. Hey, stop. A little toot. Oh. He's going after my son's Angry Bird pen, which is appropriate. Cats like birds. I'm going to teal wash the blocks and give them that vintagey teal color, and then that kind of blends in with the jar teal. I'm going to take a few days to make this. I'll be right back. I'm back. The cat is fine, but he's no longer with us. So I'm going to make 3 blocks, and I'm going to post 1 block a day until it's finished and you see the final piece on the 3rd day. I will work on them all as much as I can today, though. And then that way I am caught up before my doctor's appointment. Then on Tuesday I'll have a block, but I also have an appointment. And on Wednesday I'll have a block, but I'll also have an appointment. So I'll work on those this weekend. That way there's a new block being posted every day, but I will work on those blocks, multiple blocks a day. So I'll probably be wearing the same clothes in my videos for a while. Please don't think I wear the same clothes for like 4 days straight, because I didn't. My tools that I'll be using, of course, are my X-Acto knife and the 3 blocks and the paper, the teal paint, the handy Mod Podge, and if this is the first time you've watched me, hi, this cutting mat, which is a resealable cutting mat. It's the best thing for using if you're going to use an X-Acto knife. I mean, I'm not promoting this brand specifically. I like this brand, but a cutting mat is essential if you're going to use an X-Acto knife. One thing that I really like about it is I've always thought that X-Acto knives were hard to use until I had a soft mat, and I can actually, an X-Acto knife is a little bit flexible. So don't be intimidated by going around round parts or curves or really fine, because you can actually just barely bend an X-Acto knife when you've got one of these cutting mats. I mean, you don't want to bend the blade and snap it, but you can arch it a little bit. And then also with the mat, you can kind of turn the mat, which turns what you're cutting. So you can hold your X-Acto knife in place, but just ever so slightly turn your mat. So that has made cutting out things like a mason jar or a ball jar, all these little areas I'm going to be cutting with an X-Acto knife, and I'll get a really smooth cut, a smooth edge. And now that I've said that, I'll probably really screw it up, but fortunately I have more copies. To that point, I do have a lot of copies of things. I would call them misprints or miscuts. Sometimes I print my stationery and I go to fold it with the bone folder, and I folded it the wrong place, or I miscut it, or there was a series of cards I printed the old logo on the back. So I try to reuse that. I don't try, I do. I reuse those mess ups as much as possible. I cut the backs off and use them as note cards. I cut the fronts off and use them in other art projects. And when I make my calendars, I have a lot of excess paper that gets cut off, and I don't throw it away. I save it. I have 2 boxes full of plain white 100% post-consumer recycled paper that I use for projects. In fact, after I finish the ball jar project, I'm going to be working on a project for Election Day, which has stars, and I'm going to be working on a project with paper roses. So I tend to reuse my paper for multiple projects, and if I have to use it for scrap paper just for writing notes, I will, but I prefer to reuse all my paper. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to get cutting with my X-Acto knife and my cutting mat, and then I will start painting my blocks. Whitewashing, I don't know if that's the right term, but it looks whitewashed. I use a stencil sponge. Oh, I probably shouldn't do that. Okay, sorry. I have stencil sponge brushes, and I spot on the paint, and then I swipe it, and so you can still see the wood grain coming through. Okay. Okay, see you in a little while. I almost forgot. I am going to be putting writing on this. I tend to put writing on most of my blocks just because I like something funny or unexpected. On these, I'm going to have 2 different sayings, 2, and so the blocks will have the jar, and then I'll need something on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to have 2 different sayings. I haven't totally worked them out yet. One is going to be a reference to bowl, one is going to be a reference to jar. So what I'm going to do is something I like to do, which is to leave some of the wood exposed. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a template, and I am going to use some of that Martha Stewart stuff I used yesterday. It's like it's a stencil adhesive. It's like contact paper but thinner and less sticky. I'm going to use a template. I've stacked 3 pieces of that stuff because it's adhesive, but it comes off and on, off and on. I've stuck 3 pieces together. I'm going to trace on the back with the little lines. Okay, I'm going to trace my template on the back, and then I'm going to cut out the shape that I want. And if I just have them all stacked, I can cut 3 at a time, then peel them off, stick them on the block. And I'm glad I remembered to do this before I paint, because what I'll do is I'll paint, and then I'll leave that part covered with the stencil, and then that won't be painted. I think what I might do, actually, instead of having the wood show through, I think I'll paint them white, and then when it dries, I'll stick this on, and then I'll paint the vintage turquoisey teal color around that. So it'll be a white ribbon kind of shape, and then when I'm all ready to write on there, I'll write on the white. Hope that makes sense. It makes total sense to me. I don't know. And I forgot to mention, which I'm trying to do every time I post, is to tell you what I'm listening to. Today I was in kind of a mixed up mood, so I am playing the Quick Mix on Pandora. And so far I've heard Haunt, Tori Amos, and Van Morrison. So, oh, and Ohio by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So, quite a mix, and that's how I feel today. Well, the ball jar blocks are finished. I've sealed them and they're drying. I will probably put another coat on them because the paper is off of the block enough that I'm afraid they'll just get bumped and scraped. So I'll seal them another time after this layer dries. And what I plan on doing is on Saturday posting an image of the jars as my block for the day, as block 3. And then on Sunday, I'll post block 4, which will be one of the saying sides. And then on Monday, I will post block 5, which is the other saying. So I've got 3 blocks. One whole set out is the jar. One whole set out is a saying, and then flipped over, another set out is a different saying. So rather than posting one of the 3 blocks a day, I'll post one side of the blocks a day. And then because I have these appointments, I cannot believe how full next week is going to be. I'm about to get started on block number 6, I think. So here we go.